February 14th, 1945. Deep within the shattered spine of the Hurtgen Forest, near the ghost town of Schmidt. The cold is a physical presence. It seeps through the damp wool of a uniform, through the timber supports of the command bunker, and into the bones. For Nachrichtenhelferin Lieselotte Brandt, age 21, the cold is the least of her worries. The air itself is thick, heavy with the smell of wet pine, churned earth, and the lingering metallic tang of cordite. Outside, the trees stand like skeletal sentinels, their branches stripped bare by months of relentless artillery fire. They call this place the Grüne Hölle, the Green Hell. Her fingers, stiff and numb, trace the comms wire leading from the Feldfunksprecher radio set. Silence. For hours, nothing but the crackle of static and the distant percussive cough of American heavy guns probing the lines to the west. It's a waiting game, a war fought not in grand charges, but in inches of frozen mud and frayed nerves. You learn to read the silence. This silence is different. It's a held breath. A corporal, a boy named Klaus with eyes far too old for his 17 years, shivers by the entrance, clutching his Karabiner 98K. He keeps glancing up at the dripping ceiling, as if the sky itself might collapse. "Anything, Lilo?" he whispers, his voice barely a rasp. Lieselotte, Lilo to her comrades, shakes her head, not taking her eyes off the radio's glowing dial. Nothing. The lines to the regimental command post are dead. It's just us. The words hang in the cramped space, heavier than the damp air. Just us. A small signals detachment, a handful of weary Volksgrenadiers, all that remains of a company meant to hold this insignificant wrinkle on the map. They are an island in a sea of encroaching violence. The sounds are getting closer now. Not artillery, something else. A low, guttural growl that seems to vibrate up from the forest floor. It's the sound of engines, many engines, and they are not the familiar whine of their own Opel Blitz trucks or the clatter of a half-track. This is the sound of Sherman tanks, of GMCs, of a mechanized army that never seems to run out of fuel or men or will. The earth begins to tremble. A mug of ersatz coffee on the radio table rattles, spilling a dark puddle across a map. The Oberleutnant, a grim-faced veteran who lost his left ear on the Eastern Front, kicks aside the blanket covering the bunker's entrance and peers out. His face, when he turns back, is a mask of resignation. "They are here," he states, his voice flat. "To your posts, for the fatherland." The phrase, once a powerful incantation, now feels hollow, a ghost of a belief. There is a frantic scramble, the scrape of boots on dirt, the metallic click of a rifle bolt being drawn. Lilo's job is to destroy the radio. She grabs the small thermite charge, her hands suddenly clumsy. This is the procedure. Deny the enemy all intelligence. But as she prepares to light the fuse, the world outside erupts. The ripping canvas sound of machine gun fire tears through the trees. American voices, shouting in harsh alien English, are suddenly right outside. A grenade thumps against the bunker's log roof, showering them with dirt and splinters. The single MG-42 positioned outside fires a frantic, desperate burst before being silenced by a deafening roar. Klaus, the boy at the door, is thrown back into the bunker as the entrance splinters inward, his rifle clattering uselessly to the floor. Before Lilo can react, the shattered doorway is filled by a giant silhouette. An American soldier, broad-shouldered, his face smeared with grime and exhaustion, swings the barrel of a Thompson submachine gun into the room. "Hands up. Get your hands up now. Rouse." The Oberleutnant slowly raises his hands. The other soldiers follow, a domino effect of surrender. Lilo stands frozen for a second, the unlit thermite charge still in her hand. The GI's eyes lock onto hers. They are not the eyes of a monster from a propaganda poster. They are just tired, blue eyes, surrounded by the deep lines of a man pushed to his absolute limit. He jerks the muzzle of his weapon toward her. "Drop it. Lady, I swear to God you drop it now." Her fingers go limp. The charge thumps softly onto the dirt floor. Her war is over. She is herded out of the bunker and into the gray, freezing twilight. The forest clearing is a scene of controlled chaos. GIs from the U.S. 28th Infantry Division, their bloody bucket insignia visible on their helmets, move with grim efficiency, rounding up the survivors. Lilo sees Klaus, his face pale, being prodded into a line with the others. The wounded are separated. The dead are left where they fell. Her gaze sweeps over the scene, a numb disbelief settling over her. Lined up against the trees, their faces etched with shock and fear, are the last remnants of her unit. And waiting at the edge of the clearing, their engines idling like great and patient beasts in the gloom, is a convoy of American trucks.
The cold bites deeper now that she is out in the open, exposed. The GIs are rough, their movements quick and impersonal. A soldier pats her down, his hands finding nothing but the small, state-issued identity book in her tunic pocket. He glances at it, grunts, and shoves it back at her. There's no conversation, no explanation. They are objects to be processed, pieces to be moved off the board. The smell of American cigarettes, sweet and foreign, hangs in the air, mixing with the scent of pine and engine exhaust. She is pushed towards the line of trucks. They are big, canvas-topped GMC CCKW 6x6s, caked in mud from their brutal advance through the forest. Their sheer size and number are a testament to the industrial might that has crushed them. A knot of prisoners is already gathered near the tailgate of one, their shoulders slumped in defeat. A few are nurses from a nearby aid station, their white aprons already smudged with dirt. Most are soldiers, some barely teenagers, their faces a mixture of defiance and stark terror. A staff sergeant stands by the truck, a clipboard in his hand and a cigarillo clamped in the corner of his mouth. He looks as worn out as the landscape, his uniform soaked through, his eyes holding a weary, dangerous hardness. He's seen too much fighting. Too many of his own men die in these god-forsaken woods. He consults his list, then his gaze sweeps over the new arrivals. It lands on Lilo and the other women. He says something to a private standing guard, who then separates them from the male prisoners. For a moment, a flicker of hope. A different procedure for women? But the sergeant's expression doesn't change. It remains a mask of grim duty. He walks over, the mud sucking at his boots. He doesn't look at their faces. He looks through them. He points a gloved finger at the back of the truck. Rinde, he barks, using the crudely anglicized German common among frontline troops. Then, in English, his voice a low growl that cuts through the engine noise. Climb in. Now. The order is absolute. It's not a request. It's a physical force, pushing them forward. There is no room for questions, no space for hesitation. The private lowers his M1 Garand slightly, a subtle but clear indication that compliance is the only option. One of the nurses begins to sob quietly. Lilo feels a strange calm settle over her, the cold, clear certainty of the condemned. She grabs the muddy tailgate and pulls herself up. The truck bed is dark and smells of canvas, gasoline, and fear. Rough wooden benches line the sides. She scrambles in, moving to the front to make room. The others follow, a clumsy, silent procession of the defeated. Around a dozen of them are packed in, a mix of signal auxiliaries like herself, nurses, and a couple of young Flakhelferinnen, anti-aircraft assistants who looked no older than 16. The same staff sergeant appears at the back of the truck. He gives them one last lingering look, his eyes unreadable in the gathering dark. Then, without a word, he and the private pull the heavy canvas flap down, securing it tightly. The world disappears. They are plunged into a suffocating, swaying darkness, the last of the gray twilight gone. A moment later, the truck lurches violently. The transmission groans, gears grind, and with a roar from the engine, they begin to move. Inside the silence is a living thing. No one speaks, no one cries. There is only the rhythmic squeaking of the chassis, the rumble of the tires over the rutted forest track, and the frantic beating of their own hearts. They are a cargo of ghosts, being transported to an unknown fate. Lilo presses her cheek against the rough, vibrating canvas wall. Through the tiny gaps in the weave, she can see nothing. Her mind, a whirlwind of confusion and terror just moments before, now focuses on a single terrible thought, nurtured by years of Dr. Goebbels' radio broadcasts. She remembers the warnings, the chilling stories of what happened to German women who fell into enemy hands. The propaganda had been very specific. The truck hits a deep pothole, throwing them against each other. A young woman gasps. The vehicle slows, turns sharply, and the sound of the tires changes. They've left the main cratered road. The right is rougher now, the branches of low-hanging trees scraping against the canvas roof like skeletal fingers. They are going deeper into the forest, away from the main American force, away from any witnesses. The prisoners exchange terrified glances in the gloom. This is it. This is how it ends. Time dissolves in the suffocating dark of the truck bed. There is only the constant, jarring motion and the oppressive silence of the condemned. Every lurch, every groan of the straining engine seems to mark a countdown. For Lilo,
The darkness becomes a screen upon which her life projects itself in fleeting, painful images. You are no longer a soldier. You are no longer a daughter. You are cargo, being delivered to a final, brutal destination. She sees her mother's face, smiling in the garden of their home in Dresden, a lifetime ago. A world of sunshine and pastries and the scent of roses. A world so impossibly distant, it might as well have been a dream. She remembers the day she enlisted in the corps of Nachtgenhelferinnen, the pride in her father's eyes. She was doing her duty, connecting the sinews of the great German war machine, a vital cog in the defense of the Reich. The conviction had been so pure then, so simple, a belief in victory, in the righteousness of their cause, in the strength of their leaders. Where was that conviction now? It had bled out into the frozen mud of the Hürtgen, leaving only a hollow ache of betrayal. She tries to steel herself. She is a German woman. She will not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. She attempts to conjure the stoicism she was taught, to face the inevitable with dignity, but fear is a physical thing. It's the cold tremor in her hands that she clasps tightly in her lap. It's the metallic taste in her mouth, the way her stomach clenches into a tight, painful knot. It's the hammering of her heart against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat counting out her last minutes. Beside her, one of the young Flakhelferinnen begins to weep, not loudly, but in small, hitching sobs that are almost more terrible for their restraint. The girl can't be more than 16. Her blonde hair is matted with dirt, her face a pale smudge in the gloom. She should be in school, worrying about boys and dances. Instead, she is here, in the back of this truck, rumbling towards an unmarked grave in a hostile forest. Lilo feels a sudden, sharp pang of something, not pity, but a shared, hopeless destiny. She instinctively reaches out, her hand finding the girl's shoulder. The girl flinches, then leans into the touch, a silent acknowledgement of their common fate. The air grows thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and fear. Lilo closes her eyes, trying to focus, to prepare. She recites the Lord's Prayer silently, the words her mother taught her as a child feeling foreign and clumsy on her tongue. Vater unser im Himmel, our Father in heaven. The words offer no comfort, only a stark reminder of a peaceful world now lost forever. Propaganda images, vivid and terrifying, assault her mind. She sees the caricatures of American soldiers, brutes, gangsters, degenerates, who would defile and destroy everything pure and German. The radio broadcast had warned them. The pamphlets had shown them. In order to climb in now, a drive into the darkest part of the forest, it could mean only one thing: a clearing, a ditch, the chatter of a machine gun. It was a fate whispered about in Barrett at night, a horror reserved for the truly unlucky. She focuses on the sound of the engine, the one constant in this swaying darkness. She tries to detach herself from her body, to become an observer. This is how a soldier dies, she tells herself, even if she never fired a shot in anger. She served, she did her part. But the lie is too thin to offer any protection from the raw, primal terror that is now consuming her. She is not a soldier. She is a 21-year-old girl from Dresden, and she does not want to die. The truck seems to drive for an eternity, then for no time at all. Suddenly the pitch of the engine changes. The low growl becomes a high whine as the driver shifts into a lower gear. The brakes hiss, a long sighing sound that seems to suck all the air from the enclosed space. The truck slows, bumps to a halt, and the engine noise drops to a low, throaty idle. This is it. This is the place. The silence that follows is absolute, broken only by the ticking of the cooling engine manifold and the frantic, shallow breathing of the women packed inside. Lilo's eyes strain, trying to see through a small tear in the canvas flap near the back. All she can make out is the dark, dense wall of pine trees, their branches like black claws against the last vestiges of the evening sky. No lights, no camp, just the forest. A heavy footstep crunches on the gravel beside the truck. Then another. Someone is at the back flap. Her body goes rigid. Her prayer stops. There is nothing left now but the waiting. The heavy tread of boots stops directly behind them. There is a fumbling with the ropes that hold the canvas flap down. Inside the truck, a collective breath is held. Every woman is frozen, a statue of terror. This is the final moment, the punctuation mark at the end of a life sentence. Lilo's mind is strangely blank, wiped clean by an overwhelming surge of adrenaline. She stares at the back of the truck, at the dark canvas that separates her world from what lies beyond. The canvas is ripped back. But there is no glint of a rifle barrel, no grim-faced executioner framed against the dark trees. Instead, A blinding wave of light and a wall of sound crash into the truck, a violent sensory assault. Lilo throws a hand up to shield her eyes. The light is harsh, electric, generated by floodlights mounted on poles, casting long, dancing shadows. And the sound, it's a cacophony. The roar of multiple truck and jeep engines, the clatter of metal on metal, shouts in English and German, and underneath it all, a sound that chills her to the bone. The low, constant chorus of human groaning. As her eyes adjust, the scene resolves itself from a blur of light and shadow into a vision of organized hell. They haven't been taken to a secluded clearing. They have been driven into the heart of a massive, sprawling American field hospital. Dozens of enormous tents stand in a sea of mud, connected by duckboards. Ambulances, their sides marked with red crosses, are backed up to receiving tents, their doors open as medics carefully unload stretchers. The entire area is a hive of frantic activity. Men in white aprons, stained crimson with blood, hurry from tent to tent. The air smells not of damp earth and coming death, but of ether, carbolic acid, diesel fumes, and brewing coffee. Lilo stares, utterly bewildered. This is a factory for mending men, not for breaking them. A steady stream of wounded is being brought in. She sees the uniforms of American GIs, their limbs wrapped in bloody field dressings. And then she sees it, the detail that shatters her entire worldview. Lying on stretchers, waiting in the same muddy queues, are men in the field gray of the Wehrmacht. Wounded German soldiers, their faces pale with pain and shock, are being carried into the same tents as their American enemies. There is no segregation, no difference in the urgency of their treatment. They are all just broken bodies, fed into the same machine of mercy. The staff sergeant who gave the order to board the truck appears at the tailgate. His face is illuminated by the harsh lights, and Lilo can see the deep-set exhaustion in his eyes more clearly now. He isn't a monster. He is just a tired man trying to get through another night of the war. He gestures for them to get out. Out, schnell. They clamber down, stiff and clumsy, into the churned-up mud. They stand in a huddled, confused group, watching the maelstrom around them. A medical officer, a captain with spectacles and a harried expression, strides over to the sergeant. "These are the prisoners, Sergeant?" the captain asks, his voice strained. "Yes, sir. 10 of them. Signal Corps, nurses. The intel guy said some of them might have some English." The captain eyes them, his gaze clinical and assessing. He looks less at them as enemy combatants and more as a potential resource. He is a man desperately short on hands. "We're swamped. We've been getting hammered with casualties from the 112 all day, both sides." He turns to Lilo and the others. "Any of you understand me? Any of you have medical training, first aid?" Lilo and one of the nurses nod hesitantly. The captain doesn't wait for a more thorough answer. He makes a decision. He points at the small group of women. "We can use them. Put them to work. We need bodies to change dressings, carry water, anything. Keep a guard on them, but for God's sake, get them working." The sergeant nods, his part in their journey apparently over. A new man, a medical corpsman with a haggard face and sleeves rolled up to his elbows, approaches them. He doesn't offer a greeting. He doesn't have time. He thrusts the cardboard box overflowing with rolls of bandages and packets of sulfa powder into Lilo's arms. "You," he says, his voice rough but not unkind. It's the voice of pure, undiluted exhaustion. 10-4, that big one over there. Follow me." He turns without waiting for a reply and begins to walk away. "And don't just stand there. Move." Propelled by the sheer momentum of the scene, her mind reeling from the violent whiplash of moving from an expected death to a forced life-saving duty, Lilo takes a step, then another. She follows the medic, the box of bandages clutched to her chest like a shield, walking out of the darkness and into the blinding, bloody light.
The inside of Tent 4 is a circle of hell Dante could not have imagined. The air is thick and hot, smelling of blood, sweat, and antiseptic. A generator outside provides power to a string of bare bulbs that hang from the central poles, casting a stark, unforgiving light on the scene below. 2 long rows of cots stretch the length of the tent, and every single one is occupied. More men lie on stretchers on the muddy floor between them. This is not a hospital. This is a butcher's shop, a human repair depot working at maximum capacity. At the far end, under the brightest light, a surgeon in a blood-soaked gown works over a makeshift operating table, his movements a blur of desperate efficiency. Nurses and corpsmen move between the cots, their faces grim masks of concentration. And on the cots, side by side, are the young men of Germany and America. A boy from Ohio with a mangled leg lies next to a Volksgrenadier from Pomerania with a chest wound, their shared agony erasing nationality, politics, and purpose. Their uniforms, the symbols of their enmity, are cut away and discarded, rendered meaningless by the universal democracy of pain. The sounds are overwhelming, the soft, continuous moaning of the severely wounded, the sharp cries during a painful procedure, the low murmur of a medic offering what little comfort he can. Lilo is frozen for only a second, but the corpseman who let her in grabs her by the arm. "Here," he says, pointing to a cot where a young German soldier is trying to sit up, his eyes wide with delirium. He's pulling at his dressings. "Just hold his hand, talk to him, keep him calm, anything, just keep him lying down." The soldier is a boy, no older than Klaus from the bunker. His face is covered in a feverish sweat. He babbles in German, calling for his Mutti, his mother. Lilo's training, her identity as a prisoner, evaporates. She is simply a German-speaking woman in a room full of dying German boys. She takes the boy's hand. It's hot and dry. She begins to speak to him in a low, soothing voice, telling him he is safe, that help is here, that his mother would want him to be brave. The words come automatically, an instinct she didn't know she possessed. The boy's frantic movements slowly subside, his eyes fluttering closed. Her work for the next several hours is a blur of brutal, necessary tasks. She is no longer Lilo Brandt, communications auxiliary of the German Reich. She is a pair of hands. She helps an American medic hold down a thrashing GI while a doctor sets a shattered bone. She carries buckets of blood-stained water out and brings fresh buckets in. She learns to cut away uniforms, to clean grime from a wound's edge, to apply a pressure bandage that will hold. At one point, she finds herself working opposite a young American corpsman, cleaning a deep shrapnel wound in the shoulder of a German sergeant. They don't speak a word. He points, and she understands. He holds the skin taut, and she swabs it clean. He gestures for a new bandage, and she hands it to him from the box she still clutches. In that small, shared space of intense focus, there is no enemy. There's only the wound, and the two of them allied against it. She looks up and meets his eyes. They are brown and filled with a weariness so profound it seems to age him by decades. In his gaze, she sees not hatred or victory, but a mirror of her own exhaustion, her own disillusionment. He is just a boy, caught in the same meat grinder she is.